Hello, everyone. My name is Ezra, otherwise known as eSoup. Today we have a long stream in store for us. I am reading chapters 112 to 116, and this will be the longest stream of this volume at like 63 pages, so a lot could potentially happen today. Hi, Henry. Hi, Blue. Yeah, I'm nervous about today. And I did decide to do an extra stream this week. So I'll also be streaming on Saturday at the usual time, 3 to 5 Eastern, which means that we will finish this volume this week, and that means that we will go on our little hiatus for Case File, and we will go back to Ballad of Sword and Wine next week. So I'm especially nervous as we get close to the end of this volume, because I'm afraid of ending this volume on a cliffhanger and then having like 4 months to wait to find out what happens. But that's the risk that I take. So, yeah. What even? So many things have been happening. Oh yeah, the last thing that happened was they talked to the old man, Zhuang Jiqiang, about his daughter, his adopted daughter. And so that's why they couldn't find her, and there was a clue because his daughter went to... Where did she go? Oh, right. His daughter worked with Wang Jiankong, who was one of the victims in the murders that happened. So that's a big clue. I don't quite know what it means yet, but it means something. Henry, not the gay fear. Yeah, one thing I will say... Yeah, we're coming upon... We have just this stream, and then the stream on Saturday, and then we're done. So, I believe this novel ends in an extra as well. But ending in an extra doesn't really stop the novel, like the actual story, from ending on a cliffhanger. So I don't know what that means. Wang Jiankong, isn't he the one who ran the hospital? Wait, is he? Wang Jiankong was the first one who died in the broadcasting tower murders. The one who died at the psychiatric hospital, isn't that the guy who ran the hospital? Or was he not like the director? Because I thought he was. I honestly, see, the problem is I forget what exactly Wang Jiankong did. I think, like, he also abused women at the hospital. If someone can remind me, because at this point, so many things have happened. I'm all over the place. Oh, yeah, Blue. By extra, I do mean just a meat bun theater. I know it's not quite the same as, like, an extra. It was just that one woman, right? Did he just abuse one woman, do you mean? There were others. Psyche, and you say there were others. Yeah, I can't, the broadcasting tower victims. I know that they were chosen because of... Or at least the first guy, Wang Jiankong, he was, like, complicit in the abuse, but I just can't remember the specifics of, like, what he did. Extra, read all about it, you is gay. That's exactly what the mini theater will say at the end. So, I'm gonna get started. We are on page 347 for chapter 112, which is called I Held You. A few days later, Zhuang Jiqiang passed away. The old man didn't get a chance to reunite with his long-lost daughter before he left the world, but at the very least, he received a little bit of comfort and company. After He Yu and Xie Qingcheng settled Zhuang Jiqiang's affairs, they prepared to set off for his hometown, the Zhuang family village of Qingli County. They'd both known of Zhuang Jichang's birthplace, but they hadn't researched it in any detail. Now, upon taking a closer look, they were somewhat surprised to discover that Zhuang Jichang was from Qingli County. Lu Yuju used to be the county secretary there, Xie Qingcheng remarked. Oh, guys, was there some lagging? I just got this. Oh, no. Don't do that. No. Oh, dear. Hold on a second, y'all. I'm gonna fix the setting to see if it's a little bit better. Okay, how is that now? I have the Ethernet, but that doesn't preclude my internet provider from still having issues. I was afraid this might happen at some point. In fact, today... Did it lag again? Can y'all hear me okay, or am I, like, cutting off? I might have to reset the router. I don't know. Okay, it seems to be better now. The one thing I'm worried about is if they're literally working on my internet today as we speak, because today's April 15th. It was like the last day they told me they would be doing the work, and I still never got a call from them, so no one ever told me when they would be doing the work, but okay, we can hear. It's good. It's better. That's good. Okay. Let's, oh god, I'm losing my bookmark. Okay. Lu Yuju used to be the county secretary there, Xie Qingcheng remarked. Do you think that's a coincidence? Xie Qingcheng shook his head. I don't think it's so simple either, said He Yu. Let's take things one step at a time, but we need to move faster. We can't let this go the same way it did with Sha Hong. We can't let our enemies destroy the evidence first. He Yu didn't need to say any more. They both quickly requested time off, and they boarded a flight to their destination that very night. You know, at least we have an excuse to get them together. It's like whenever things turn investigation mode, it's like, ha, y'all can't be separate now. After the plane landed 2 hours later, they hired a car and set out toward the Zhuang family village of Qingli County. The sky was glimmering with the first rays of dawn by the time they reached the village. They found a local guest house to stay in, and although He Yu did his best to mentally prepare himself, entering the room still proved to be a horrible shock. He'd never seen such a shabby hotel before. The room smelled like mildew. The carpet hadn't been installed evenly. The tiles on the floor were cheap. The vanity was blooming with mold. And the mirror was covered in splotchy marks. Not even the sheets were clean. They were littered with suspicious-looking light brown stains. He Yu turned to leave on the spot, suitcase in tow. What are you doing? Xie Qingcheng asked. I can't deal with this. Just bear with it for one night. I don't want to. And then where are you going to stay? I'd rather sleep in a pile of hay outside than stay in this kind of place. Xie Qingcheng didn't want to deal with him. He was so delicate, like a spoiled, prissy young lady. On second thought, though, He Yu had only followed him to this backwater to track down the clues that would lead them to the drug Xie Shui had taken. He might as well let it go, he decided. Y'all are right, it will look kind of suspicious if anyone noticed that they took time off at the same time. Granted, the main person who would notice is Xie Shui, and she's in the hospital right now. Blue, can they sleep while cuddling now, please? Please. Okay, enough fussing, Xie Ge cajoled the prissy young lady. I'll think of another way. In the end, Xie Qingcheng found a rural farmhouse that seemed relatively clean and gave the family 1,000 yuan to let them stay for 2 nights. When the family saw their handsome looks and urbane mannerisms, and of course their money, they were delighted to accommodate their requests. The room they prepared wasn't very large and only had one bed, but at least it was clean and tidy. The lady proprietor made sure to lay out 2 fluffed cotton mattresses from the closet for them, and then very politely brought them 2 cups of tea. Yu stood in the room, still feeling rather ill at ease. "Sit down and drink some tea," Xie Qingcheng said. Yu walked over and peered at the tea. The water wasn't clear, and it gave off an earthy smell even after it had been steeped. He walked away again, like an aristocratic kitten who'd rather die of thirst than drink it. Luckily, Xie Qingcheng had 2 cartons of Shuhua milk in his suitcase. He handed them to Yu. Yu took them, glaring at him. "This is all you're giving me?" Xie Qingcheng's patience had run out. "I brought them just for you." He brought it just for him. "If you don't want them, give them back to me." Yu rolled his eyes. He reluctantly pulled the straw off of the carton and took tiny sips of the processed milk that he disdained for not being pure enough. After they'd settled in and eased some of their weariness from traveling, they set out again to investigate Zhao Xue. They first went to the high school where Zhao Xue had studied, but the building was abandoned, the grounds overgrown with weeds. The school's main iron gate was closed, held in place by a thick, corroded chain that looked like the molted skin left behind by a snake. Humanity High School? It's been closed for years now. What a strange name for a school. The shopkeeper at the small convenience store nearby cracked peanut shells as he answered their questions about the school. The financial backer withdrew their funding. There was a big fuss at the time. A lot of the students had nowhere else to study. It's really quite a loss. "Do you know who the principal was and where they are now?" Yu asked. "The principal?" "The first principal was a woman, but she left after just a few years. The principal after her was from the city, but after the school closed, he left too. He didn't talk much with the people in the village while he was here. He was an educated man, you know, a bit stuck up. We couldn't really understand him. But you guys can go to the Yi family village up the road and ask around. There's an integrated 9-year elementary and middle school there that used to have a partnership with Humanity High School. They might know more there." When he heard the words Yi family village, a vague sense of anticipation and unease rose in Xie Qingcheng's heart. "Do we know something about Yi family village?" There was like the village that Zhuang Jichang was from, and then there was a neighboring village that he mentioned. And I don't know if he mentioned this one or not. But maybe Xie Qingcheng knows something about it. Following the shopkeeper's directions, the 2 of them walked a kilometer to another small village in Qingli County. Underneath the towering tree at the village entrance, a handful of wizened old men were playing cards. The sounds of mahjong tiles being shuffled and dice being thrown in a cup drifted out of a 2-story building with clay roof tiles nearby. It was obviously an underground gambling house. Next to this gambling house, there was a stone tablet with 3 large words carved into it. Yi Family Village. It was obvious at a glance that this village had a gambling problem. Yu coldly appraised the group of old men, who were still betting so intently despite the fact that they might as well already be half buried in the sandy Loess soil. He turned back to Xie Qingcheng and said disdainfully, "This place is too..." But when he caught sight of Xie Qingcheng's face, Yu stopped speaking. I just saw something down the page. Also, yeah, no, that's a good guess, though. The same Yi is in Yi City, because then the name itself would be sinister. I don't think that's it, though. Xie Qingcheng had suddenly gone extremely pale. Yu wasn't stupid. After a few seconds of dumbfounded silence, he put the pieces together. The Yi family village, the surname Yi, a remote backwater, a gambling addiction, the little casino at the village entrance. One name suddenly surfaced from his thoughts. Yi Beihai. This was where Qin Xian's murderer had lived. Xie Qingcheng had seen pictures of the Yi family village in the papers before. After Qin Xian's death, quite a few journalists had rushed here to photograph Yi Beihai's old home. The cobwebby front door had been sealed, but the mud brick house itself still hadn't been torn down. Still, the building appeared entirely decrepit. Xie Qingcheng walked over to that old house, staring at every single brick and tile. The rims of his eyes slowly reddened. It was hard to say if it was out of hatred or heartbreak. He was about to lose himself in the scene when somebody suddenly grabbed his wrist. It was He Yu. You, Xie Qingcheng snapped. What an ugly hovel. Let's go. Don't look at it anymore. It'd be bad luck to look at it too much. He Yu covered Xie Qingcheng's eyes with his other hand as he spoke, forcibly turning his face away from the house. He kept talking in a tone that brooked no resistance. Quick, come with me to the school. He Yu's attitude somehow seemed both comforting and completely unreasonable. I think that's very sweet. Xie Qingcheng really couldn't pin down his behavior. He Yu had been acting so strangely lately, always speaking to him so harshly, as if Xie Qingcheng owed him 5 million yuan. But he hadn't done any of those shameful things to him again. Let's go, He Yu repeated. Xie Qingcheng stilled for a moment, pulling his wrist out of He Yu's grasp. He hated being told what to do by anyone, especially when the person in question was a boy so many years his junior. But he knew that He Yu was right. He straightened out his cuff and took a moment to calm himself down. It's fine, he said. I can walk on my own. He willed himself to look away from Yi Beihai's old home. Sliding his hands into the pockets of his coat with a solemn expression, he strode past He Yu. He Yu watched his silhouette. Although Xie Qingcheng's expression had been unsightly when he turned away, his figure was as upright, tall, and resolute as ever, as if nothing other than death itself would be able to break him. Xie Qingcheng. Silently reciting his name to himself, He Yu caught up to him. Soon, the two of them arrived at the Hope School of the Yi family village. It occurred to me that these schools probably have kind of weird-sounding names because they were like charity things, like people donated to open the schools. So we have, what is this place called? Like Humanity School, the one that they never got enough donations to open. And then there's Hope School. So I can only guess that's why. Like, the names sound kind of strange, but it makes sense in that light. When Zhao Xue had been a student at the school, it was still called the Hope Elementary School of the Yi family village. Later, it merged with another school to become an integrated elementary and middle school, teaching students from 1st through 9th grades, which was when it had acquired its current name. As soon as Xie Qingcheng caught sight of the principal, he knew they had no cause for optimism. The principal was very young, probably not even 30 years old, and obviously couldn't be the same person who had helped Zhao Xue back then. After a very simple conversation with her, He Yu and Xie Qingcheng's hearts plummeted even further. The former principal had passed away many years ago, and the turnover rate for other teachers was very high. Most teachers who came to teach in rural areas didn't remain for very long. Only a handful had stayed on for more than 5 or 6 years, and of those, none had ever met the person who had overseen Humanity High School. Is there any way to access the old files? He Yu asked. There used to be an archival library in the village, but there was a fire a few years ago. Humanity High School's materials were all in there, so there's nothing left now. An archival library that caught fire. He Yu and Xie Qingcheng were more certain than ever that this matter was closely linked to the Chengkang Psychiatric Hospital and Huzhou Broadcasting Tower cases. The methods used in these 3 cases were too similar. It could hardly be called coincidence. But the problem was extremely obvious. Their opponents hadn't left them any trails to follow. This is where, somehow, and I don't know how, but this is where He Yu's hacking powers need to come into play. The people who were familiar with these cases were impossible to track down, like sand washed away by the pounding waves. After an entire day of searching, Xie Qingcheng and He Yu came up essentially empty-handed. At nightfall, they returned to the farmhouse. The family had prepared some food for them. After eating a bit, Xie Qingcheng went back to their room to rest. Just from looking at his weary profile, He Yu could tell that there was a lot weighing on his heart. That's true, Blue. The problem is, yeah, you're right. If the archives weren't digitalized, then how can you hack to find out more about them? He thought for a while, and then turned to the woman they were staying with. Auntie, are there any nice restaurants around here? There's one place that's pretty good, but it's a little far. It takes more than half an hour to walk there. The lady seemed a bit worried. Was dinner not to your taste? Ah, that's not it at all. I enjoyed it very much. He Yu smiled. It's just that my friend isn't feeling well. I didn't want to bother you, so I thought I'd go out and get some more food for him. She understood now. Is that gentleman your older brother? She asked. You could say that, yeah. You're so good to him. Look at you two, full of brotherly affection. He Yu smiled without saying a word. The lady was very warm-hearted, and her husband happened to be making a trip to the fields and said he could take He Yu along. He Yu gladly agreed. As it turned out, the man drove a tractor. He Yu couldn't be too picky in a backwater like this. At any rate, riding a tractor was still better than walking half an hour by himself on these unlit roads at night. Thus, He Yu became a tractor-riding CEO who took a long, arduous journey to get takeout for his Dr. Xie. Fortunately, the restaurant's food was excellent. Although the place was on the small side, it was mercifully clean and neat. He Yu ordered a few stir-fried dishes to go, and then, remembering that Xie Qingcheng had been coughing a lot lately, he asked the owner to prepare some soothing stewed pear syrup with rock sugar. Then he rode back on the tractor. When he got back to the room, Xie Qingcheng was already asleep. Since there was only one actual bed in the room, and Xie Qingcheng obviously didn't want to sleep with He Yu, he had made up a bed for himself on the floor. He's... Blue, he's already turning into that service top that we all knew he would become. Henry, I don't know what song you're referencing, but I kind of love it. The sound of He Yu coming home woke him from his light slumber. Where did you go? He Yu walked over to the table and brought the takeout containers, one by one, out of the plastic bag, instantly filling the room with the aroma of food. I didn't really like the food at dinner, so I got some things from a restaurant nearby. Want any? Ugh. Because he doesn't want to just tell him, I got food for you. No, Xie Qingcheng replied. The hand in which He Yu was holding his chopsticks momentarily stilled. He said, somewhat gloomily, I ordered too much, so if you don't eat any, I'll have to throw it out. Could you not waste so much food? Then get up and eat with me. Xie Qingcheng had no choice but to throw on a jacket, pull himself up, and sit down at the table, coughing all the while. But when he saw the dishes on the table, he frowned slightly, his gaze rising to land on He Yu's face. What's wrong? Is it not to your taste? No, not to his taste. It was perfectly suited to his taste. Too perfectly. Peppercorn chicken, mapo tofu, tomato beef brisket soup, sauteed sweet potato leaves. It's meat bun and food again. Every time we've got meat bun and food, I want to eat all the food. Also, I love how similar this is to, like... Yeah, like Moron knowing exactly what Chuaning likes to eat. Yeah. and Blue, the tricking him. They were just some small home-style dishes, but they were all things Xie Qingcheng liked to eat. More importantly, they weren't things He particularly liked. He was incredibly particular. His sea urchins had to be Sardinian. His oysters had to be Irish. I don't know anything about oysters, but I've never heard of, like, Irish oysters being a particular thing. Okay. And he wouldn't even eat Australian beef. It had to be Japanese. He didn't eat spicy or numbing foods, and he wasn't fond of vegetables either. But this was He was talking about here. Surely, he would never go out of his way to buy extra food for Xie Qingcheng. He dismissed the idea completely until He took a jar of stewed pear with rock sugar out of a paper bag and pushed it in front of Xie Qingcheng with a wooden expression. Xie Qingcheng stared. "What are you looking at?" He said. "I don't want you to keep me up all night with your coughing." Xie Qingcheng was a straightforward person. He didn't like to beat around the bush. Since He had indeed gotten this specifically for him, he glanced at him and said sincerely, "Thank you." He wasn't so straightforward. He turned his head away. "Take your time eating. I'm going to wash up." The mere sight of the farmhouse's extremely crude washroom gave He the heebie-jeebies. He steeled himself through a quick shower, then immediately dressed again and went back to the room. Xie Qingcheng had already cleaned everything up and was standing by the window, feebly drinking the stewed pear as he looked at the overcast landscape outside. For a moment, as He walked toward him, he wanted so badly to wrap his arms around his slender waist from behind and kiss the cinnabar mole at his nape. We drink to nape now. In every book. To let his lips trail down the bluish veins of his neck. He wanted to cast his eyes down to drop kisses along the stark line of his jaw, then finally kiss him on his thin lips. He wanted to kiss him. He wanted to have him 10,000 times over. But he knew that he shouldn't. He loved Xie Qingcheng, but he didn't want to lose control over himself, and he really didn't want his love to hurt Xie Qingcheng anymore. Xie Qingcheng's emotional burdens were already grave enough, and He feared that if he carelessly poured any more into Xie Qingcheng's body, he would collapse beneath the weight and fall apart completely. Oh. Blue, you said she did something funny there. It was Hoyu's POV all this time. But for a sec, it sounded like Xie Qingcheng wanted to kiss Hoyu. I wonder if that was intentional. What line was that? Oh, like at the start where it's like, for a moment, as Hoyu walked toward him, he wanted so badly to wrap his arms around da-da-da-da-da. Because, like, I could see, because we were in Xie Qingcheng's perspective, and then it switched. So you could be like, wait, whose perspective is this for a moment? I see. Yeah. Also, the chapter title is I Held You, so apparently it is going to happen. As if he felt Hoyu's gaze, Xie Qingcheng looked back at him, coughing softly. He emanated an inexplicable blend of strength and fragility. "It's getting late," he said. "You should sleep. We'll continue investigating tomorrow." Hoyu was about to agree when he caught sight of Xie Qingcheng's other hand where it was resting against the window frame. His face suddenly fell. He was stunned, speechless. Unbelievable. Xie Qingcheng was still smoking. Not only that, he was smoking while drinking the stewed pear. Young people might go out clubbing while drinking goji berry tea, but this menopausal old man refused to be outdone. He could drink a cough remedy at the exact same time as he devoted his energy to the nation's tobacco industry. Thoroughly shocked and infuriated, He strode over to the window and snatched the cigarette right out of Xie Qingchung's hand. What are you smoking? Marlboro. Not the brand. I meant, are you seriously smoking? He stubbed out the cigarette on the wall with a hiss and tossed it out the window, fed up with Xie Qingchung beyond belief. You reek of tobacco. You're not allowed to smoke anymore. Xie Qingchung didn't want to make a scene with him, so he pushed He away. Fine, I won't smoke anymore. I'm going to sleep. What are you sleeping on the floor for? He demanded. It's a double bed. Did he really need to ask why Xie Qingchung was sleeping on the floor? Young people these days were way too casual. Although he had slept with He so many times, none of those trysts meant much of anything to him. None except for the last time. That one night with He had brought him a pleasure he'd never known before. Real, genuine pleasure. He had never experienced anything like that before, whether with Li Roqiu or by himself. When he thought of what he'd done with He that night, and especially how he'd taken the initiative himself, it seemed too absurd and too dangerous. I love when we get Xie Qingchung's perspective on things like this. It felt like He had bewitched him. How else could things have gotten to that point? When he woke up the next morning and smoked an after-sex cigarette, watching the boy sleeping soundly in the crook of his neck, alarm bells went off in his heart. He knew that he could not, under any circumstances, let something like that happen between him and He ever again. The best method of prevention would be to reduce unnecessary contact. Xie Qingchung looked at He calmly and solemnly. It's not suitable for us to sleep in the same bed. As for the reason why, you should be clever enough to figure it out. You're younger, so I'll let you have the bed. It's time for me to rest. Thanks for dinner. That logic. Trying to avoid him aside, that logic makes no sense. Xie Qingchung, not to pile on to everyone saying he's an old man when he's literally my age, but he is the older one and he is sick, so obviously he should have the bed. It's time for me to rest. Thanks for dinner. Xie Qingchung was about to go lie down, but the youngster was faster than him and took the bedding on the floor first. Exactly. I'm not about to fight over the bed with an uncle, He said grimly. As the chairman of the student government, it's my duty to respect the old and cherish the young. Please take the bed. You're getting on in years, and I wouldn't want you to injure your back. Faced with Heyu's stubbornness, Xie Qingchung didn't feel like wasting any more time. There was so much weighing on his mind already. He really didn't have the energy to bicker with He. He took another blanket from the bed and gave it to He. Then he sighed, shrugged off his jacket, and lay down on the spaciously empty double bed. Go to sleep. I'm turning off the light. Okay. However, in the quiet of the night, neither of them slept. This was a given for He. Like most young people, he usually went to bed late and didn't get much sleep to begin with. As for Xie Qingchung, he had too many things to do and too many thoughts on his mind, so he tossed and turned in the darkness, sighing softly to himself, unable to sleep soundly. Although Xie Shui's illness didn't present any major issues for now, there was a chance that her condition could worsen at any time while the new drug remained unknown. He couldn't stop worrying about her. And there was the matter of Yi Beihai, too. This was Yi Beihai's hometown, and Lu Yuju's hometown, too. These unremarkable characters who had stirred up such perilous waves were all born in this remote Qingli county. Could it really be a coincidence? No. Then he thought of Qin Xian again. Xie Qingchung's heart ached deeply and uncontrollably. He closed his eyes, but it was impossible to fall asleep. Halfway through the night, rain started falling outside the window, sheeting down in torrents. The gusting wind brought a damp chill into the room. The blanket was too thin, So Xie Qingchung's coughing grew worse and worse until he couldn't stop. In a daze, he heard an indistinct movement from behind him. Before he could react, he felt a familiar warmth. He Yu had climbed into bed and hugged him from behind. Henry, you almost heard the blanket was too femme. That's so funny. So that's the end of the chapter. We are on page 361 for chapter 113, which is called Who Was It That I Saw? That's an interesting title. I wonder what that means. Xie Qingcheng stiffened for a moment. In the darkness, he silently opened his eyes. He didn't want to sleep with He Yu, of course, but given the condition he was in, he didn't have it in him to struggle against him either. When he felt Xie Qingcheng suddenly tense up, He Yu knew that he wasn't asleep. "Guh," he said quietly into his ear. "Let me squeeze in with you. I'm cold." "Didn't I already say that you should take the bed?" Xie Qingcheng tried to sit up. "Don't get up. I'm freezing to death." "Come on, Xie Qingcheng. I'm only going to hug you. I won't do anything else." Xie Qingcheng could tell that he really wasn't making any advances. The young man's body felt like a scalding hot stove pressed to his back. Although freezing to death seemed like a complete lie, Xie Qingcheng ultimately didn't want to continue the conversation. Fine, He Yu could do whatever he wanted. Xie Qingcheng closed his eyes again, surrounded by the young man's warmth as he curled up next to him. He tried to make himself relax. He Yu was only 20 after all, and brimming with vigor. Haven't we... Okay, I looked it up and we were talking about this last time, but He Yu's birthday is supposed to be May something. And last stream, there was something about an early spring chill. So He Yu should not have turned 20 yet. Unless what it says about his birthday on the internet is wrong. I don't know where we can confirm this. But I'm confused. Unless, again, he's like rounding up. He Yu was only 20, after all, and brimming with vigor. With his back pressed against the boy's chest, Xie Qingcheng could feel his heartbeat and his body heat. Gradually, he stopped shivering from the cold, and drowsiness slowly overtook him. His body relaxed, but unfortunately his heart couldn't. As soon as dreams overtook Xie Qingcheng, he saw Yi Beihai brandishing a cleaver, his head thrown back in maniacal laughter. He saw Qin Xian's body falling from the window like a marionette with its strings cut, falling. The scene suddenly shifted into one of countless moon jellyfish drifting in the rays of the setting sun, floating past cafes and markets on the streets of Brooklyn. The man who was like a father to him walked out of one of the shops, carrying his dinner in a brown paper bag, and smiled. "Ah, Xiaoxie." His smile gradually blurred in the lovely sunset, the golden light turning into scarlet blood that gushed from broken bodies, only to be washed away by the rain. The birthday thing. Well, the reason I was confused is because, like, I wouldn't think of May 26th as, or after, as early spring, and they specifically said early spring. But what I'm also trying to figure out if there was a point where it mentioned his birthday and we just, like, missed it. Because that seems like it would be important, but it could also add to the effect of, like, the loneliness of him spending another birthday alone. There wasn't any mention of it. So maybe it's going to come back around to that later and we're going to be sad about it. Psychine, the thing about birthdays that I know is that in Korea they do that. In South Korea they count your age differently. But I never heard that about China. I'm not sure. Wait, okay. The man who was like a father to him walked out of one of the shops, carrying his dinner in a brown paper bag, and smiled. Ah, xiao xie. His smile gradually blurred in the lovely sunset, the golden light turning into scarlet blood that gushed from broken bodies, only to be washed away by the rain. Zhou Muying and Xie Ping lay in the wreckage of the crash, a police cordon drawn around them in the downpour as the truck that had driven into them of its own accord was consumed by a roaring inferno. The flames licked the heavens like the tongues of demons. In Chungkong Psychiatric Hospital, Zhang Lanpei sang softly, "Drop, drop, drop the hanky. Set it lightly behind your friend's back. No one let him know." He rushed in, but it was too late. Xie Shui's dismembered corpse lay on the floor. Remember when we really thought she was dead? He started coughing violently. Xie Ching-chung, wake up, wake up. Xie Ching-chung's peach blossom eyes flew open wide, pupils drawn into dots. He was drenched in cold sweat, panting, as Hoyu's face appeared in his unfocused gaze. Hoyu was leaning over him, one hand propped next to his pillow as he patted his face with his other hand. He said anxiously, "Wake up. You're having a bad dream." Even though Xie Ching-chung had opened his eyes, the nightmare kept going. His mind was still trapped in the chaos of his dreams. As he saw Hoyu's face so close to his own, those handsome features overlapped with his memories of Hoyu from that night in the club. In that moment, it was like he was still lying on that black leather sofa, and Hoyu was about to pour that scarlet liquor onto his chest. Oh, the PTSD is hitting. Jerking upright, Xie Ching-chung harshly shoved Hoyu away. "Don't touch me, you..." He rasped out between coughs. "Stay away from me." His illness and his dream had left his body weak, but the look in his eyes was severe. He resisted instinctively. Hoyu wasn't an easygoing person to begin with, and he couldn't pretend it didn't bother him to have his good intentions so roundly rejected by Xie Ching-chung. But then he saw the way Xie Ching-chung's hands were pale and trembling, that even his fingertips were shaking as he buried his face in his palms. Hoyu fell silent at once. He knew that he must have played a part in that nightmare. The boy's expression grew grave as he realized every time he touched him now, Xie Ching-chung would subconsciously remember the things they had done before. And for Xie Ching-chung, they were all undoubtedly memories he didn't wish to relive. No matter how good Hoyu's intentions were, how deep his desires ran, or how badly he wanted to just hug Xie Ching-chung and comfort him, Xie Ching-chung would never need any of that from him. It seemed like his presence could only worsen Xie Ching-chung's condition. Yeah, the thing with Xie Shui was that was some cheating on Meat Bun's part, because she really wrote it like calling the corpse Xie Shui. It was like, you like, okay, you were just lying to us, but also I'm just gonna process what just happened, the amount of growth that Hoyu has had. Yeah. She lied to us. Hoyu stared in silence at Xie Ching-chung for a long moment, his gaze at once heated, fierce, and helpless, until he finally managed to force down his desire to draw close to him. With a grim expression, he slowly got off the bed, pushed open the door, and walked out of the room. Xie Ching-chung sat alone on the bed, still surrounded by the warmth of two people cuddled together. As that warmth gradually faded, he leaned back against the headboard, the curve of his neck a delicate arc. Then he slowly closed his eyes. He didn't want to care what Hoyu was doing. Whether the brat was hurt or pissed off, it didn't matter to him. Sure. Once, he had wanted to give Hoyu the last drop of hot blood in his body, but on that night in the club, Hoyu had personally scattered the handful of warmth that Xie Ching-chung offered him. even though they'd made it through a life-or-death situation together afterward. In the depths of his heart, Xie Qingcheng could no longer accept He Yu the way he once had. He would never be able to accept him. As Xie Qingcheng calmed down, he was taken aback by the sudden sound of the door creaking open again so soon. He was even more surprised to see He Yu walking in with a cup of freshly boiled water, steam spiraling from its surface. He Yu passed the water to him, his gaze lowered. "Drink this," he said without looking at Xie Qingcheng. "When I used to have bad dreams when I was home alone, I always drank a cup of hot water. It'll make you feel much better." He was right. In the chilly night, surrounded by lingering nightmares, it was very difficult to resist the temptation of a cup of hot water. Xie Qingcheng closed his eyes and took the cup at last, still murmuring his thanks. Then he took 2 white tablets from a pill case by the bed and washed them down with the water. "Are those the pills you take for your psychological Ebola?" "Mm-hmm." After swallowing the pills, Xie Qingcheng took a few more sips of water. He gradually relaxed, some color returning to his lips. He noticed that He Yu wanted to take a closer look at the pill case, but he reached out to stop him. "They're different from yours. They won't work on you." "Are you sure these pills are really effective?" He Yu asked. "Your health still seems pretty bad to me." Yes. Exactly, He Yu. Thank you for your observation. Something is going on with the medication that Xie Qingcheng is taking, or not taking. Because I wonder if he's not taking the stuff that he said he started taking that would help him have a longer lifespan. Xie Qingcheng looked up at him. "Who's the doctor here, you or me?" "Right, you're the doctor." "All right." He Yu put the pill case down and turned to leave. "Where are you going?" Xie Qingcheng asked. "It's so annoying how you keep startling awake and shivering from the cold. I'm done waiting on you," He Yu said carelessly. "I'm going outside to look at the stars." With that half-hearted excuse, he left. But of course he wasn't going to look at the stars. His heart simultaneously ached and burned. The way Xie Qingcheng had looked when he startled awake made him want to hold him and comfort him. The way Xie Qingcheng looked when he slept, knitting his brows in his sleep and trembling slightly, made him want nothing more than to indulge his innate inclination for aggression in bed and start passionately fucking him. Every time He Yu suppressed his emotions and diverted his intense love and desire away from their target, it was inevitably a blow to his mental state. This internal conflict was wearing him down, especially since he still had to maintain his calm, unflappable facade in front of Xie Qingcheng. He Yu walked out to the path between the fields and pressed an ice-cold pocket knife to his wrist. Long ago, he left behind a self-inflicted scar there. He would hurt himself if he didn't hurt others. His illness was impossible to placate without an offering of blood and anguish. He didn't want to hurt Xie Qingcheng anymore. His strange dragonkin had already suffered too many wounds. In the end, the only person left for him to hurt was himself. Blood trickled out, but he was soon numb to the pain. At last, He Yu threw the blade to the ground, burying his twitching hands in his pitch-dark hair. He doubled over where he stood, holding his head in his arms, as his heart screamed silently. His anguish overwhelmed him. He couldn't escape. Sometimes, he even wondered, if he hadn't done that to Xie Qingcheng in the club, would everything have turned out differently? Could things have taken a turn for the better? Whoosh. As the night wind echoed off the lowest hills and whispered through the parched leaves of the Russian olives, He Yu tried his best to calm his heart. Suddenly, he heard the rustling of footsteps in the distance. He Yu lifted his scarlet eyes, unconsciously looking toward the source of the sound. It was a person dressed in red, their features obscured behind a muffler. This person seemed to have the figure of a slim woman, but it definitely wasn't the woman from the farmhouse. The woman furtively approached the house where they were staying, pausing hesitantly next to the window, and standing on her tiptoes several times to peer inside. Yu froze in astonishment, because the window she was looking into was the one to his and Xie Qingcheng's room. Yu pulled himself together and straightened up. It seemed like almost anything could happen here in Qingli County. Yi Beihai, Lu Yuju, and Zhuang Jichang's long-lost daughter Zhao Xue were all from this strange place. It was as though an invisible black net stretched over the county, ensnaring all sorts of murder cases, missing persons, and criminal forces. He and Xie Qingcheng were outsiders who'd come here to dig up long-buried clues. They were bound to be discovered. Truthfully, Yu wouldn't have been surprised if someone had received orders to kill them. Since the moment they arrived in Qingli County, he'd been on high alert, never letting his guard down even when he slept. He wasn't afraid of killing or drawing blood. If his opponent showed an inkling of aggression, they'd be knocking into the muzzle of his metaphorical loaded gun. His heart was filled with waves of sickness that needed to be drained out. If these criminals wanted to attack them, giving him the excuse of legitimate self-defense, he wouldn't hesitate to tear open their chests and carve out their hearts. Yu stared unblinkingly at the woman in the red dress. She had yet to sense his presence. Holding his breath in rapt attention, he slowly drew closer. The woman's skulking silhouette was reflected in his scarlet eyes. Just as the mantis stalked the cicada, unaware of the oriole lurking behind it, she had no idea that Yu was watching her every move. Suddenly, the woman swiftly reached behind her back as if to pull something out. The unblinkingly executed murders from Chengkong Hospital, the broadcasting tower, and the production of the trial flashed through Yu's mind. Was it a gun? He rushed from the shadows faster than she moved out in the open. By the time her hand reached the rigid object at her back, a sharp knife was already pressed between her shoulder blades. Yu's icy voice spoke from behind her. "Don't move." A shiver ran through the woman's slender body. The tip of Yu's knife slowly slid down her spine until it reached the arm hidden below her windbreaker. "Put it down." The woman said nothing. Yu repeated himself, this time colder and more threatening. "Put it down." "Looks like I don't have a choice, do I?" said the woman. "No, you don't." For a moment, there was silence. Then the woman seemed to decide that under these circumstances, listening to Yu was her only option. Something heavy slid to the ground with a muffled thud. It was too dark outside for Yu to clearly see what it was, but he was in no rush to find out right away. "Good. Now put your hands in the air and turn around," he ordered. "I said, turn around." The woman had no choice but to give in to Yu's demands. She slowly turned to face him. In the darkness, Yu saw a pair of extremely familiar eyes. He had definitely gazed into those eyes before, somewhere else. Alright, take your bets, take your guesses. Who do we think this is? Take off your scarf. Hurry up. A dog barked a few times, somewhere in the distance, the bizarre soundtrack to their confrontation in this mountain village. The woman stared intently at Yu with those familiar eyes. Then she slowly reached up, lifted her muffler, and... Suddenly, she drew her hand back and locked him in place with astonishing force. With a strength that was shocking for a woman of her build, she shoved Yu away, breaking free of his grasp. She then leveled a roundhouse kick at him, forcing him to duck away. The woman seized her chance to run, and Yu swore to himself, grabbing a corner of her hooded coat. "Let go," the woman snarled. Yu didn't loosen his grip. Her coat ripped as the two of them yanked it back and forth, the force pulling it down to expose her face. Thousands of suspicions had already filled Yu's heart. But no matter how calm or fearless he might be facing any kind of murderer, when the murky light fell onto that woman's face, he still froze in shock. So is it the woman who seemingly died in the hospital, but maybe she somehow escaped? And there was something last time that we learned about how her face seemed stiff. I thought that meant she was, like, wearing a disguise, but I still didn't think that she had survived. But now that's what I'm wondering. Because what would make this so shocking? Right? But anyway, that's the end of the chapter. Okay. So, it's time for me to take a break. And when we come back, we will be reading chapter 114, which is simply called I'd Seen Her Before. I think we know that, Hoyu. Thank you. Thank you for that information. Or Shishue, but that's more an intrusive thought. Yeah, she's in the hospital now, but you know, maybe that could be a good cover-up for her doing sketchy stuff, so I don't know. But I don't think it's her because I'd seen her before as a chapter title immediately says it's not Shishue. That, you know, that would have a different chapter title. That would be a different kind of situation. Was she from the library or the hospital? I was thinking it was the woman from the hospital. I guess there's also a possibility that the woman from the library somehow survived, and it could be her. Honestly, at this point, who knows? So yeah, I'm gonna take a break. I guess we'll hopefully find out who this is when we come back. Hello, I'm back. Hi, Nina. I'm glad you could make it. It sounds like all of you have numb legs or something, so I don't know what's going on right now, but apparently we're all afflicted with numb leg syndrome today. Um, so that's fun. That's great. I hope your legs feel better. Um, so we are on page 371 for chapter 114. I'd seen her before. Lu Yu Ju? Oh, it is. What? I really thought that it would not be possible for it to be this woman, okay? Lu Yu Ju, it really was her. The woman he'd thought had died in the explosion at the archives. How could this be? He and Xie Qingcheng had been there themselves, when the entire library had been leveled by an assortment of buried explosives. How could Lu Yu Ju's flesh and blood body have made it out of there unscathed? Yeah, that was not my first choice for who this would be. I need to know. How on earth? While he stared blankly, the woman seized her chance to flee. Oh, are we not about to find out how she got away? As she sprinted away at top speed, the sleeves of her red dress fluttered in the desolate landscape, making her look like a spirit risen from the grave. She swiftly tore through the brambly undergrowth and disappeared from sight. He Yu was about to give chase when he suddenly caught sight of the object she dropped. It wasn't a handgun. In fact, it wasn't a weapon at all. It was a thick brown paper bag. After standing there dumbfounded for a long while, He Yu carefully picked up the hefty bag. On his way back to the house, he ran into Xie Qingcheng with his coat thrown over his shoulders. What happened? Xie Qingcheng asked. I heard something outside. Blue, that's an interesting question. Do we have an ally now? Could she have decided to help them out? He Yu didn't know how he was supposed to explain. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he never would have believed that Lu Yuju was still alive, much less that she had somehow followed them to Qingli County and peered into a farmhouse window to watch them in the middle of the night. Xie Qingcheng frowned at him. He Yu was still holding the brown paper bag. I'll tell you inside. Back in the guest room, Xie Qingcheng was equally shocked once he heard the whole story. Are you sure you didn't confuse her with someone else? He asked, coughing softly. I'm sure. That was definitely Lu Yuju's face. Though what? Though when I fought her in the archives, we traded a few blows, and I didn't think she was that strong. Her reaction times weren't so fast either, He Yu said. You didn't see the way she ran off in the end. She just vanished, like a ghost. Xie Qingcheng remained silent. It wasn't just my imagination, He Yu said. Xie Qingcheng took a sip of warm water, his features blurring slightly in the steam. Do you still remember what Lu Yuju told us back in the archives? He asked eventually. What? She said she had a daughter. He Yu blinked in surprise. Realization struck. And this is Qingli County, he blurted out, so that means... That person might have been the daughter who never acknowledged her mother again. Okay, well, that explains how she could have survived. Maybe she didn't survive. Maybe it's her daughter. That would make sense, said He Yu. Her speed and strength were nothing like her mother's. If she grew up doing farm work and running around in Qingli County, she'd be in much better shape than Lu Yuju. Let's inquire more closely tomorrow, Xie Qingcheng said. We didn't find any clues at Humanity High School, but Lu Yuju's ex-husband and daughter are certainly worthy targets for investigation. He Yu nodded. They both glanced at the brown paper bag again. When she reached behind her back, I thought she was going for a gun, said He Yu. But in the end, she only took out this bag. If it were a gun, you should have been running away. What were you doing, trying to disarm her? What's it to you? Xie Qingcheng glared at him. Yu took Xie Qingcheng's half-finished cup of water and swallowed a few sips as a pretense. At any rate, he said, this brown paper bag is what she left behind after all that sneaking around. Let's see what's inside. The two of them cautiously opened the bag. Under the guest room's dim light, they huddled together to get a clearer look at the contents that fell out. What they saw rendered them both speechless. That thick bundle of paper was the personnel records of Humanity High School. She is helping them out. How can this be? Yu mumbled. Xie Qingcheng was just as surprised. How could he have anticipated a mysterious woman sneaking over here to drop off a bag full of the very records they'd been seeking in vain this entire time? This situation just kept getting stranger. Xie Qingcheng, Yu ventured. Do you think these files are real? Let's take a look at them first. The moonlight outside the window was like frost as Xie Qingcheng and Yu began shuffling through that thick sheaf of aged documents. Somewhere in the middle, their eyes paused on one page in particular. Zhao Xue, said Yu. Xie Qingcheng had spotted her name too. The records of Zhuang Jichang's foster daughter Zhao Xue were right here. Zhao Xue actually looked a bit like Xie Xue. They both had a sweet, charming air about them. The report contained all sorts of details, from her family's address to the awards she received at school. In the space for future whereabouts near the bottom of the form, whoever filled it out had simply written, arts student in Huzhou. But the document didn't specify which arts institution she had enrolled in for further training. I'm going to continue on with my theory that this could be my brain just like broke for a second. The theory that this could be Xie Xue's mother secretly somehow, but the only way for that to work would be if she was also Xie Qingcheng's mother, because they look similar. So if they were, like, secretly adopted, I don't know. Or they could be related in some other way. Xie Qingcheng and Yu quickly rifled through the reports and found over 10 more that said art student in Huzhou, just like Zhao Xue's. All of them were very pretty female students. But these students had something else in common, too. Their parents and close relatives were almost all listed as deceased. If these files are real, this means that the girls they picked to study in Huzhou were either no longer in contact with their families, like Zhao Xue, or they were already orphans, and all of them were very beautiful. Yu summed things up as he read. If that was really Lu Yuju's daughter outside just now, why would she give these to us? He paused, thinking. And why would she even have these old records? For the time being, neither of them had promising theories on the mysterious woman's motives. They quickly finished looking through the files. The faculty records were at the very end. Yu and Xie Qingcheng found some documents there about the person who'd been principal of Humanity High School at the time of its founding. Although the files on the school's administration were very concise and not as detailed as the student records, they at least included basic information like names, places of birth, and photographs. One would usually imagine that someone harming schoolgirls would be a vulgar-looking man. However, contrary to their expectations, the picture before them showed a woman. She had lovely features and a haughty bearing, with high cheekbones and thin lips. Even though the photograph was barely 2 inches tall, her strong, independent personality still shone through. Xie Qingcheng peered at her, his brow furrowed. Don't you think? Yu began. Xie Qingcheng looked up and met his eyes. She looks a bit familiar. I think so too, said Yu. I feel like I've seen her before, but I can't think of where. Oh god, now who could this be? I don't know. The principal's name was Jin Xiuhe. Jin Xiuhe. This record from over 20 years ago listed her age as 28 and her place of residence as Huzhou. So she's now over 48 years old. Hold on. Seeing her name reminded He-Yu of something. I think I know who she is. He took out his phone as he spoke, typed in a few keywords, and pressed enter. An assortment of text and photos appeared in the search results. He-Yu took a few seconds to quickly glance through them before handing the phone to Xie Qingcheng. Xie Qingcheng saw that Jin Xiuhe actually had an encyclopedia entry. Jin Xiuhe, female, former chairwoman of the Huzhou Women's League, chosen as one of the city's top 10 businesswomen in 1994. All of this was unimportant. The important part was the line about her marital status. In the entry for her husband's name, 3 shocking characters were written. Huang Jilong. You remembered everything now. Jin Xiuhe was Huang Jilong's wife. If Humanity High School had such nefarious plots lurking behind it, then all those female art students lured to Huzhou were likely linked to her as well. He turned it over in his mind. Studying the performing arts. Huang Jilong's wife. Art students. You realized something. If this is all true, could those old cases of missing students be related to Huang Jilong's entertainment company? Is Huang Jilong, like, trafficking people via his film company as, like, a front? Like, is that what's happening right now? Because that's what this kind of sounds like. I mean, among other things that he's doing, the longer he followed this train of thought, the clearer his ideas became. The appearance of these documents seemed to link together all the fragmented pieces of evidence they'd collected so far. It was as though a vast ocean had opened up before his eyes, with the truth soaring out of the water like a great mythical dragon. He suddenly looked up at Xie Qingcheng. I have a guess. Go on. These are the clues we currently have in our hands. He-Yu listed them out for Xie Qingcheng one by one. First, before Humanity High School was shut down, Wang Jiankong came here to recruit students. He told them at the time that they would move to Huzhou to study the performing arts and prepare for their exams. He promised that they might become celebrities on TV and make a name for themselves as entertainers someday. Zhuang Jichang's foster daughter Zhao Xue was one of these girls. He-Yu pointed to Zhao Xue's file. This record indicates that her last known position was as an art student in Huzhou, but we don't know where in Huzhou she went. Zhuang Jichang was in contact with her when she first arrived, but Zhao Xue stopped all communication not long after that, and he never saw her again before he died. So we can assume Zhao Xue legitimately went missing. He took a pen from the nightstand and marked Zhao Xue's file as missing. I don't think she's the only missing person either. From these files, it's clear that all the art students in Huzhou had either very few family connections or were orphans without any relatives. He-Yu laid out each of the records in front of Xie Qingcheng as if revealing a hand of cards. We can go to the village committee tomorrow and ask around, but I think I know what we'll hear. These girls went to Huzhou full of hope to start on the road toward stardom, but they never came back. I assume that these overlooked women are either missing or deceased. He-Yu wrote down Wang Jiankong. Then he made another internet search to check something. Second, the information on Baidu indicates that Wang Jiankong started working at Huzhou University 15 years ago, as the person in charge of international academic exchanges. But after what happened at Chengkong, Wang Jiankong was killed. At the same time, Liu Yuzhu blew up the school's archival library, destroying everything inside. Do you suspect that the arts training institution that those girls went to was the Huzhou University School of Communications? Xie Qingcheng asked. Close, said Ho Yu. From what I know about Huzhou University, they've never set up prep courses for the college entrance examination in recent memory. But although there aren't official courses, there are plenty of unofficial ones. For example, there are some private prep centers that advertise with slogans like classes taught by Huzhou University professors, and some of the really bold ones rent out Huzhou University's premises to recruit students. To outsiders, these agencies might look like they're legitimately affiliated with the university, but they're not actually related at all. I'm more inclined to believe that Wang Jiankong recruited students into one of these private prep centers with Huzhou University's name tacked onto it, He Yu continued. That just leaves one problem. Where did those students ultimately end up? He pushed the last case file in front of Xie Qingcheng and softly tapped his knuckles on the paper. Jin Xiuhe. She was Humanity High School's principal, and the fact that Wang Jiankong came to this school to recruit students can't be a coincidence. It's very possible that he and the school's administrators had a mutually beneficial arrangement. Humanity High School would have been like a long-term pipeline. You know, teachers are often very familiar with their students, especially at a boarding school. So they had plenty of time to determine which students would be the best targets, which of them could disappear or die without anyone who'd search for the truth. Oh, I was supposed to drink when they say case file. I got so wrapped up in the story unfolding that I totally forgot. Jin Xiuhe must have tacitly allowed or even abetted Wang Jiankong's wrongdoing, which means that she must have benefited from everything Wang Jiankong was doing. It's very likely that they were working together for mutual gain. By this point, even He Yu couldn't help but sneer in disgust. He could imagine girls like Zhao Xue, living through countless hardships and studying hard for a decade, yearning for a day in the future when they could transform into phoenixes and fly away from their dead-end lives. They slung shabby backpacks sewn out of old clothing over their shoulders, carrying their precious dreams with them as they walked to school. But they didn't know that this charitable school was different from the Hope Elementary School they had attended before. What awaited them was the yawning maw of a demon that would swallow up their flesh and bones. I think these missing people may ultimately be connected to Huang Jilong's film company, and Huang Jilong's company might be connected to Chengkong Psychiatric Hospital, too. Do you remember at Chengkong Hospital, Zhang Lanpei said that the Liang brothers were perverts and had assaulted her? He Yu asked. I think we can come up with a theory. When Huang Jiankong took up his position at Huzhou University, he met Jin Xiuhe through his new job. The two of them worked together to choose the best targets among these students. Then, using the pretense of arts training, they decisively brought them under their control. These students became research subjects for a drug similar to RN13. That kind of research. At this point, He Yu glanced at Xie Qingcheng. Xie Qingcheng's handsome features looked resolute beneath the lamplight. It was difficult to imagine that this man had once endured the torturous pain of having his body broken and bloodied so badly that he had no choice but to take an illegal drug to stay alive. That kind of research couldn't be endured by just anyone, He Yu said softly. The way that he's, like, thinking about Xie Qingcheng enduring it, and he's like, not just anyone can endure that, but you can. Damn. He paused for a moment, then continued speaking with his eyes lowered. They couldn't handle it, so they lost their minds. The women who went mad were sent to Chengkong Psychiatric Hospital, and they became the patients that the Liang brothers, Wang Jiankong and Jin Xiuhe's collaborators, took advantage of with their authority and money. In that hospital, those women were like prisoners, condemned to an endless life sentence until their abusers squeezed out everything they could from them. I would guess that all the patients sent to Chengkong had their names changed. After enough time passed, it would be very challenging to investigate. Perhaps the clues were in Huzhou University's library, and that was why they needed to destroy it right after the Chengkong case. Xie Qingcheng let He Yu finish. He carefully considered everything he'd said, before finally asking a single question. If Huang Jilong is really connected to all this, then who orchestrated Hu Yi's death? It might have been Huang Jilong himself, He Yu answered. That's unlikely. The trial had a colossal budget, but after Hu Yi died in that specimen tank, filming was halted on the entire production. That was a huge loss for Huang Jilong. I don't think it was him. There's another possibility, then, said He Yu. As a longtime criminal, at some point, Huang Jilong provoked someone who wanted revenge. But either way, I think we have some clues to follow now, about the RN-13 that Xie Shui took. If we direct our search toward Huang Jilong's film company, we may find an answer. What about Jin Xiuhe? He Yu shook his head. You don't understand our circles. No matter what she did back then or whether we find any evidence, Jin Xiuhe can no longer be convicted. Xie Qingcheng raised his eyebrows, his expression turning combative. He couldn't stand it when people used their influence and power to subvert the law. Really? How powerful is her backer? He Yu smiled wanly. Extremely powerful. Who is it? King Yan Luo, He Yu replied. And there is a footnote. The ruler of hell. Jin Xiuhe is dead. The only person we can investigate now is Huang Jilong himself. But before we begin, we need to confirm something. He lifted the yellowing records again. We need to go to Liu Yuju's ex-husband's home tomorrow and figure out whether the girl from tonight is really Liu Yuju's daughter. If she is, I want to know how these files ended up in her hands. I just turned the page and saw the name of the chapter. Hello everyone. We're on page 383 for chapter 115, which is called We Went to a Massage Parlor. All right then. By the time they were ready to go back to sleep, it was very late at night. After they'd analyzed all this data together, Xie Qingcheng was looking at He Yu with less distrust than before. You should rest soon, he said, then coughed softly a few times. Still cold? He Yu asked. I'm fine, Xie Qingcheng answered. I'll be better after drinking a bit of hot water and resting for a night. He pulled his jacket around him and walked over to the table. The unfinished cup of water there was still warm. Xie Qingcheng leaned against the table, sifting through the files once more as he slowly finished the water. After enduring this harrowing ordeal, Xie Qingcheng seemed even wearier than before. He Yu didn't know if Xie Qingcheng had smoked too much, or if his health was simply poor, but ever since they'd met again, his physical condition had been noticeably deteriorating. An air of sickness had settled over Xie Qingcheng's tall, striking figure, as if he was draped in a sheet of snow-white gauze. Beneath his unyielding aura of masculinity was a beauty as cool and fleeting as morning mist. He Yu stood there for a while, watching the man who always seemed to slip through his fingers like pale tendrils of fog. Gradually, his mind began to wander. Xie Qingcheng turned around and noticed him staring. What's wrong? Nothing, He Yu responded. I'm going to wash my face. You should get some sleep. He left the room with a strip of torn fabric in his hand. He wrapped it around his wrist to make sure Xie Qingcheng wouldn't see his self-inflicted wound while he was asleep. Only then did he go back inside. I feel like Xie Qingcheng is going to discover that at some point. By the time he returned, Xie Qingcheng had already fallen asleep on the bed. He Yu watched him calmly for a long while, with a look in his eyes that seemed both gentle and dangerous. He knew that his thoughts toward Xie Qingcheng were even more extreme than anything that crossed the minds of Wang Jiankong's criminals. Now, I don't know about that. Yu. Also, actions are more important than thoughts and all that. Not like Yu has contained his thoughts to simply being thoughts either, but, you know. Wang Jiankong and his cohorts committed murder and ran prostitution rings, but they were too unsophisticated. A crime committed solely for money, power, and fame was nothing more than an eyesore, as ugly and stupid as a dog rolling around in the mud. Maybe he was mentally unsound, but he had no interest in the kinds of things they did. Because of the aberrant psychology etched into his bones, what he really wanted to do was carve Xie Qingcheng into a work of art that belonged fully to him. Oh no. I'm about to read a line, and if you've seen a certain book cover, I can't, hold on. He would have to blind him in both eyes so he couldn't walk ahead without him. Okay, I'm I'm done with meat bun right now. Why is Hoyu clear? Wait, why is he clear? It said he was clear. I missed that. I'm too distracted by that line. If Xie Qingcheng didn't listen, he would pluck out his scales and peel away his tendons one by one, then press his bloody body to his chest, holding him close. With the coursing of hot blood and the regeneration of new skin, he would make his body meld seamlessly with his own. That way, he could have him. Oh, blue, okay. I won't worry about it then. It's something I don't know about. He could share every breath and every heartbeat with his only true companion. Hoyu stood by the wall for a while, savoring the bloodthirstiness in his heart, before sighing and walking over to the bed. This time, Xie Qingcheng had left half of the bed for him. Oh, but Hoyu didn't dare sleep in it anymore. Lowering his lashes, he slowly undressed. Then he lay down on the floor again and closed his eyes. As soon as Hoyu's eyes closed, Xie Qingcheng's opened. In the darkness, he looked sidelong at Hoyu's face. What was he doing? Before, Xie Qingcheng hadn't wanted to sleep with him, yet Hoyu insisted on squeezing in. Now, he didn't care where Hoyu slept. Now that he knew he wouldn't do anything rash, Xie Qingcheng had even left him space on the bed so that the kid wouldn't catch a cold. But he didn't want to sleep there anymore. It was truly baffling. I don't know. Wind back the clock a little. You know, you woke up from your nightmare. Hoyu is reckoning with being the cause of some of your nightmares. Makes sense. Lack of communications, George. After a while, as if he could feel his gaze, Hoyu's eyes flew open again. Xie Qingcheng said nothing. Neither did Hoyu. The person on the bed, propped up against the pillows, met the gaze of the person on the floor. Hoyu's voice was audibly throaty, like the sound of a temple bell suppressing an evil beast. What are you looking at? Xie Qingcheng was a man who valued directness, so since Hoyu asked, he didn't beat around the bush. Why are you sleeping on the floor again? The bed is too hard and you're too skinny. Sleeping up there holding you is really uncomfortable, and you smell like smoke. Xie Qingcheng didn't reply. I can't stand you, Hoyu said. That's for the best. Please carry on not being able to stand me. Xie Qingcheng turned off the light. Sleep. It's very sad, but it's also kind of funny for Xie Qingcheng to say that. Like every now, yeah, like Henry, it's the sassy thing. Like every now and then, Xie Ching just says something that's so gay that I'm like, okay, you haven't figured it out yet, sir. In the black of night, the room returned to darkness. He Yu pulled the blanket over his face and whispered in a voice too quiet for the other man to overhear. Xie Ching, you moron. I was lying. Even though he was sleeping right near him, He Yu took out his phone under the covers and silently opened Xie Ching's WeChat profile. He typed some words he would never send into the chat box. Xiege, good night. Then he closed the page, opened that photograph of Xie Ching in profile, and kissed it softly. This was the only way he could let out a tiny fraction of the emotion surging within him. Otherwise, he knew that the sickness he'd barely managed to suppress through self-harm would return with a vengeance. He Yu didn't care whether he did beastly things. He knew he was already a beast in Xie Ching's eyes. But he cared about whether Xie Ching could endure it. Even though Xie Ching was the bravest, strongest, and most resilient man he'd ever met, He Yu knew that no one's endurance was truly limitless. Xie Ching had already been through so much, and he didn't want his desire to become the last straw that broke his back. The night passed just like that. Early the next morning, Xie Ching and He Yu asked the family they were staying with where Liu Yuju's former husband lived. His house should be in the town center, I think. The lady didn't seem too sure, though. She turned to ask her husband. It's there, right? That's right, he replied. I think it's on North Street. I'm not too familiar with the area, so I'm not positive, but it should be around there. Are you heading there? He added warmly. I'll give you guys a ride. Naturally, the ride was his extremely hip tractor. He grinned at He Yu. Hey kid, you and my tractor are fated. You rode it to get dinner for your guga last night, and now you're riding it again the very next day. These villagers spoke straight from the heart, and He Yu was too late to stop him. He put a hand to his forehead helplessly. Xie Ching heard everything. His brow furrowed slightly as he looked at the boy next to him. So it was true. He'd known from a glance that He Yu must have ordered most of the dishes last night with him in mind. But this irrefutable confirmation made a subtle feeling stir in his chest. Oh, a subtle feeling. A subtle feeling. All right. Xie Ching had taken care of Xie Xue, Li Ruoqiu, and Chen Man just like that. But he'd never received the same kind of care in return. He was extremely unaccustomed to it. To be fair, you turn it down from other people. The feeling was actually somewhat uncomfortable for him. He didn't understand what He Yu was trying to do. After all, what tied them together anymore? They were sufferers of the same rare disease, and they used to sleep together. That was all that was left of their relationship. They'd cast off everything else. I was taking a walk and bought that stuff along the way, He Yu said. Do you have to stare at me like that? It's terrifying. Get on the tractor. Although they were more than 2 decades into the 21st century, fragments of the past could still be seen everywhere on the roads of Qingli County seat. The red lacquer characters above the door of the grocery store looked like they were straight out of the 80s. A handwritten price sheet hung in the window of the hair salon. At the entrance of the school, the owner of the convenience store was selling fried skewers and rice cakes. He wore a Navy factory uniform and lazily picked his teeth. Above the store's door hung a bunch of cheap plastic toys, Pop Rocks, potato chips, and multicolored hard candies. This is so funny. I don't know why this is so funny to me, this phrase I'm about to read, but it's so funny to me seeing this phrase here. As a Gen Zer, He Yu had some vague knowledge of these colorful objects from the 90s, 80s, and even the 70s, but he rarely encountered them in real life. Xie Ching was different, though. As he walked through Qingli County streets, a hint of nostalgia peeked through in his eyes. when he caught sight of a Wei-Shin Foods near the primary school's gate, the kind of store that had long gone extinct in Huzhou. His footsteps abruptly slowed, as if he tripped over an invisible rope. Following his gaze to the store, Yu was taken aback. 2 yuan for a cup of boba? That's what the price used to be, Xie Qingcheng replied. How long ago was that? Let me think. Xie Qingcheng thought for a while, walking toward Wei-Shin Foods with his hands in his pockets. Before you were born. Yu had nothing to say to that. They walked into the store, which was filled with the aroma of recycled cooking oil and non-dairy creamer. The smell made Yu's forehead scrunch up just as it made Xie Qingcheng's forehead relax. Laoban, 2 milk teas, please. I was also hoping you could give me some directions. Just ask if you want to ask, Yu said in a low voice. What are you getting milk tea for? At 2 yuan a cup, is it even drinkable? For 2 yuan a cup, it's not going to kill you, Xie Qingcheng said. I want some boba now. The proprietor was very enthusiastic and handed them a greasy post-it with Liu Yuju's ex-husband's address written on it. Soon the milk tea was ready. Xie Qingcheng tried a sip and discovered with satisfaction that this milk tea tasted just like it had all those years ago. Once, he'd been a kid who walked home every day in his school uniform. Xie Ping and Zhou Muying were very busy with work, so when he was in elementary school, they gave him 5 yuan a day to buy some snacks after school to tide him over until dinner. Otherwise, by the time the 2 police officers came home, Xie Qingcheng would have practically starved to death. Boba and the like had first appeared near the entrance of Xie Qingcheng's school when he was in 5th or 6th grade. Boba drinks were very trendy at the time, and 2 yuan a cup wasn't cheap for an elementary school student back then. After all, it was only 1 yuan for 4 fried tenderloin skewers. But everyone rushed over to get a cup while it was still new, and the line stretched to more than a dozen meters long when the place first opened. Xie Qingcheng loved going to the milk tea shop back then. The shop owner also sold all sorts of fried skewers, roast sausages, and meatball soups, and there was an area for students to sit and do their homework. Xie Qingcheng would order a milk tea and some snacks and quietly finish his homework there. Eventually, his parents learned to check the milk tea shop by the school when they got off from work, because Xie Qingcheng would often still be doing homework at a table inside. They would stop by and pick him up on their way home. Later, Huzhou went through some dramatic changes, and little shops like that gradually disappeared, as if they were scraps of paper littering the street. Oh, goodness, the art. Okay. Well, it's time to look at the art. He was so cute. To Xie Qingcheng, that 2 yuan cup of boba wasn't simply about the flavor. It also evoked the sound of Xie Ping's bicycle bell ringing outside the shop door all year round. Officer Xie, picking up your son, the shopkeeper would greet him. The man would smile and nod as he walked in, touching his head to Xie Qingcheng's. Time to go. You sure love drinking this milk tea every day. Let's go home for dinner. A loud, spluttering sound interrupted Xie Qingcheng's reminiscence. He turned toward the source of the sound to find Yu having a violent coughing fit. Despite his best efforts, his face had turned slightly green. The young master put down his milk tea, looking as if he were a moment away from being sent to the crematorium. What's wrong? Xie Qingcheng asked. It would be awkward for Yu to say anything in front of the shopkeeper, so he pulled Xie Qingcheng toward the exit. As soon as they stepped outside, he blurted out, Can you really drink this stuff? I grew up drinking it. A long silence. You... Forget it, Xie Qingcheng said. There's a generational gap between us. You wouldn't understand. Forced to choose between understanding Xie Qingcheng and not drinking white arsenic, Yu still decisively opted for the latter. He threw out the milk tea, having determined very scientifically that drinking this stuff wouldn't open the floodgates to understanding Xie Qingcheng anyway. Li Ruoqiu was around the same age as him, so she must have had this stuff before too, But did she understand Xie Qingcheng? Nope. Clearly, drinking poison was unnecessary. On the other hand, Xie Qingcheng was very satisfied with his drink. As the two of them walked toward the address the shopkeeper gave them, he sipped on his boba without smoking a single cigarette the whole way there. Just as Xie Qingcheng finished his last tapioca pearl, they stopped in front of a dual-purpose shopfront. The two men glanced at the shop sign and checked the address again, looking back and forth several times to make sure they hadn't come to the wrong place. Oh, I see. Oh, this is how they end up at the massage parlor. Thick red curtains were pulled shut inside the shop. The words massage, hair salon, and foot spa were written on the grimy glass door, but there was no price list in sight. The shop's name was at the top, Ah Wen Hair Salon. It was very obvious what type of business the salon was engaged in. They hadn't anticipated that Lu Yuju's ex-husband would live somewhere like this. Xie Qingcheng hesitated briefly before stepping forward and knocking on the door. Over 10 minutes later, as they were beginning to doubt whether there was anyone inside, the salon's curtains parted slightly, and the glass door slid open a crack. A young woman who looked to be only 18 or 19 stood behind the curtains. She warily looked them up and down, then seemed to reach some sort of conclusion and began to close the door again without a word. Xie Qingcheng wedged the door open. "Please wait a moment." The young woman stared at him dully. "Could you please tell us if Yi Chang is here?" They learned that Yi Chang was the name of Lu Yuju's ex-husband. When she heard the name, the woman paused with the door half closed. "Are you the police?" He Yu was speechless. The actual police obviously wouldn't admit who they were if she asked them like that. "No," he replied anyway. "We're just looking for Yi Chang." "My dad's been away for months now. He's not home." He Yu stared blankly. Her dad? Could this girl be Lu Yuju and Yi Chang's daughter? But she didn't resemble Lu Yuju at all, and she looked quite frail too. If He Yu had encountered her last night, there was no way he would have let her escape. Nor would he have mistaken her for Lu Yuju. "Are you Yi Ah Wen?" he asked. "She's my older sister," the girl replied blankly. "My name is Lulu." So this was Yi Chang's daughter with his second wife. Lulu relaxed a little when she saw that the two men weren't looking for trouble, but she still stared warily at their faces. "Is there something you need from my dad?" she asked. "It's not a big deal. No worries if he's not here. Oh yeah, one more thing," He Yu added, feigning carelessness. "Could we talk to your sister?" Lulu shrank back until her face was shrouded by the curtains, only peeking out at them through a narrow crack. "She isn't here. Neither is my dad. You should leave." "We're not the police," Xie Qingcheng said. "We don't mean any harm. Could you—" Lulu had already shut the door. Xie Qingcheng wanted to knock again, but He Yu pulled him back and shook his head. "Right, I don't like that either, Blue. What are they doing to that girl? I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Let's go for now. Asking that way won't get us anywhere," he said as they left Ah Wen Hair Salon. "Put yourself in their shoes. The people who live in places like that always need to have their guard up. Then what do you think we should do?" "Let's try again tonight," He Yu replied. After dinner, it became clear to Xie Qingcheng exactly what He Yu intended to do. He Yu went to the family they were staying with and asked them for some old clothes that locals might wear. Once he'd haphazardly thrown together an outfit, he cut off some of his hair and I'm sorry. And meticulously glued it onto his face to create a beard. No, they're disguising themselves as just like regular townspeople. He just glued hair onto his face. Okay. Now, is there art of this? I need there to be art of this. I'm afraid there is not art of this. Finally, facing the mirror, he dusted some cheap bronzer from the town pharmacy onto his face. The communications school offered makeup courses as electives. Who would have thought they'd come in handy now? When He Yu walked out of the bathroom, he gave Xie Qingcheng a fright. What happened to the poised, elegant university student who was here just a second ago? The man in front of him was clearly a weathered, unkempt villager. Hoyu grinned. How do I look? Completely unrecognizable. Excellent. I can do your makeup, too. Xie Qingcheng narrowed his eyes. What are you planning? A nighttime trip to the hair salon, of course. Surely you're not thinking of... When Lulu was talking, I looked through the crack in the door. There were a bunch of girls inside. I couldn't see exactly how many, but there were at least 4 or 5. Since that place is running an illegal business, of course we're not going to get anywhere just barging in and asking for information. Hoyu grabbed Xie Qingcheng by the hand and pulled him toward the bathroom. We need to pretend we're customers. Come here. Let me help you with your makeup. I've already come up with our cover story. Someone from the neighboring village recommended the place to us. We're looking for some fun, but we're also afraid of being discovered. So we don't want to do anything in our own village. So we came out here to patronize their services. Hoyu could certainly come up with some outlandish plans, Xie Qingcheng thought. But on second thought, although this idea was truly appalling, they didn't have any other options right now. Hoyu began to do Xie Qingcheng's makeup. He liked to listen to music when he needed to concentrate, so the playlist he picked for the occasion floated out from his phone. The music played and played, eventually arriving at a song that was very familiar to Hoyu. He listened for a while before realizing this was the theme song from Andhadhun. There's a footnote. Andhadhun is a 2018 black comedy about a pianist who pretends to be blind and witnesses a murderer he shouldn't have been able to see. Interesting. You thought it was My Heart Will Go On. You're like, thank God it's another song. Hoyu's makeup brush suddenly paused as an idea occurred to him. Xie Qingcheng. Xie Qingcheng opened his eyes. Okay, I'm gonna read this to you, and then I'm gonna tell you. You probably already know why my brain is breaking at this right now. Xie Qingcheng opened his eyes. Would you mind wearing a pair of contacts? I have some in my suitcase that might be useful. I've got an idea that might help those girls let down their guard. So he's gonna have Xie Qingcheng pretend to be blind. And again, I'm not gonna say anything, but you know what I'm talking about. Oh. Alright. So. Yeah, the cover better also be about pretending. I don't think it is, but you know. Meat Bun is deeply evil, but so funny. You are correct. So we have one more chapter for today. We are on page 397 for chapter 116, which is called And Found a Body. So they went to the massage parlor and they found a body. Just after 8 o'clock that evening, 2 customers appeared at Awen Hair Salon. They were unfamiliar, but based on their clothes and general appearance, they were likely villagers from the area. One of them was leaning on a white cane, gazing ahead vacantly with listless gray eyes. They knocked on the hair salon's glass door. Unlike the endless wait during the day, Awen Hair Salon's doors opened right away at night. As before, the person who greeted them was Lulu. She looked them up and down and then asked, 2 for a shampoo? Hoyu had never come to this kind of place before, but being clever as he was, he replied cautiously, for a massage. Oh, please have a seat. Lulu led Hoyu to a cheap hairdressing stool. Hoyu cast a sweeping glance over the floor. There wasn't a single strand of hair in sight. Out of the corner of his eye, he began to examine the salon. The premises were separated into an inner and outer half. There was a staircase as well, with more rooms partitioned off upstairs. Currently, they were sitting in the outer area, which looked like any ordinary hair salon. However, the scissors were rusty. They were clearly just props. Henry, there has to be a Being on Ben fanfic titled 2 for a shampoo. Yep, I'm sure there is. If I remember things, then I will look that up after this and try to find one. A row of slouching women sat on a nearby sofa. None of them was especially pretty, but their outfits were extremely provocative and revealing. They looked up from their phones from time to time to glance at the two men. And just to be clear, if I find a fanfic with that title, I will not read it because possible spoilers, but I just want to find out if it exists. Does the gentleman want a massage too? Lulu sized up Xie Qingcheng, her gaze lingering on the gray contacts covering his irises. Yes, it's his first time, Yu said. Make sure not to scare him. What are your prices for neck and shoulders and the complete package? He had looked up these code words on the internet just moments ago. Although he didn't feel entirely confident, his face was a mask of calmness. Lulu was quiet for a moment. In the silence, Yu started to worry. But finally, Lulu smiled. 80 for neck and shoulders, 200 for the complete package. Which lady would you like to be your masseuse? Yu truly had a wild streak. After thinking for a bit, he flashed a convincingly vulgar grin at Lulu. How about we all go together? That'll be 50 more per person, Lulu replied. Ooh, that's a lot, Yu lamented. Jia, that doesn't make any sense. Aren't I saving you a room? It's too extreme, Lulu said. Most places wouldn't let you. Just ask one of them if you don't believe me. Yu made a show of scrounging for every cent. Can we get 20 off? We're new customers, so humor us. We'll come back again. 10. Deal. Xie Qingcheng hadn't expected Yu, the little brat, to be so good at acting. I guess his schooling has been paying off. Of course, he wasn't slacking off either, since he was wearing contacts that made him look like a blind man, just like in Andhadhun. He made sure to walk very cautiously, first tapping on the ground with his cane before slowly stepping forward. Yu picked two of the frailest-looking girls. One of them walked over and took Xie Qingcheng's arm. Be careful. The stairs are narrow. I can show you the way. The four of them walked up the stairs together. I know, right, Blue? How have you not expected it? You've seen him acting before. You know about his masks. Xie Qingcheng, he doesn't... Sometimes he does not consider things. The four of them walked up the stairs together. The small rooms upstairs were partitioned with wooden boards that were barely thicker than sheets of paper. Naturally, the soundproofing was abysmal. At this hour, there weren't many entertainment options in the area. Although stress relief starting at 80 yuan certainly wasn't cheap to the villagers, it was a thrilling and effective outlet for many single men. There were several customers already up here, judging by the amorous sounds echoing plainly down the hallway. Although the two women who led them upstairs were both very young, it seemed like they were already numb to this kind of work. They showed no trace of shyness or embarrassment. They walked into one of the rooms and bolted the door. Inside were 2 beds and 2 armchairs upholstered in synthetic red velvet. Please take off your clothes, said one of the girls. Yu smiled. This is my friend's first time at this kind of place. Slow down a little, okay? Don't scare him. Why don't you massage his shoulders first? The girls met all kinds of people in this line of work. They were used to first-timers who felt rather ill at ease, so they weren't caught off guard. In the service industry, the customer always came first. The 2 girls had them sit down in the crimson armchairs. The chairs faced a full-length mirror, which gave them a view of the entire room. The girls started to massage their customers. The people who came here weren't actually looking for massages, so the girls didn't have a particularly expert technique. Some small talk and lingering touches were enough to gradually melt away the customer's awkwardness. Daga, where are you from? They'd say to set the stage. Then they'd toss out a hint with, Daga, just let me know if you want to feel good. Every profession had its workflow, and theirs was no exception. Throughout this process, Xie Qingcheng hadn't said much. With his long lashes lowered over his cloudy gray eyes, he rested his cheek on his hand and listened to the conversation with a mild expression. Yu was sharp as a tack. After only a couple of days, he had already picked up some of the local dialect. He quickly won the two girls over with his lighthearted banter. As the girls continued the massage, they unknowingly began to let information slip. Both of them had been students at Humanity High School, albeit only briefly. But when He asked them why they dropped out, one of the girls didn't answer, while the other was silent for a moment. "My family wanted me to get married," she said, smiling wanly. "So I left school. So you... My husband likes to gamble. Lots of the men here do. They place huge bets at the underground casinos and they'll lose 200,000 or more in a single night. More than the whole family's savings put together." The woman gently pinched Hoyu's shoulders. "So my husband's making me go out and earn some money." Throw away the whole husband. It was a shocking story, but Hoyu was well-read and well-versed in the ways of the world. He knew that in these sorts of places, especially in remote villages, such deplorable things happened from time to time. The husband would loaf around and make his wife earn a living through disreputable means. Sometimes, the husband himself would even be her pimp. In those cases, the man naturally took all her earnings, too. Women were merely tools with flesh, blood, and bones that could nourish their families. Still, meeting one of these victims in real life, his heart was shaken. One of the women paused for a moment with her eyes downcast. Daga. No matter the age of their client, they would always call them Daga. Later, "Could you be gentle with me when we're together?" Probably because Hoyu seemed so friendly, she couldn't help letting some weakness show through. "I'm 3 months pregnant, so..." Hoyu's astonishment grew. "And you're still working at a place like this?" "Otherwise, there would be no money. We're out of money at home, and I still have to pay off his debts." Her tone was mild, but tears were already beginning to gather in her eyes. Hoyu was dumbstruck. At that moment, he suddenly thought of Lu Yuju. Back in the day, Lu Yuju had also resorted to the world's oldest profession. As time passed, she gradually grew numb. And while she was in such desperate straits, the mastermind behind the scenes had asked her, "Why are you working at a place like this?" In truth, those words weren't all that gentle or caring. Perhaps that man didn't even think before he spoke, just like Hoyu right now. But Lu Yuju had been treated like an animal for too long. That sentence had reminded her of the fact that she was still a human being. "Forget it then," Hoyu began. "Why don't we just..." These words seemed to startle the woman. Without waiting for him to finish speaking, she suddenly fell to her knees. Everyone in the room, other than Xie Qingcheng, jumped at her movement. Xie Qingcheng remembered he was supposed to be blind, so he kept sitting there woodenly, not moving a muscle. The woman tugged on Hoyu's sleeve. "Daga, could you please not switch me out? Just pretend I didn't say anything. You can do whatever you like. I just came back to work a few days ago, but I'm not very pretty, so hardly anyone's picked me. If you send for someone else, the madam will be so disappointed with me. By the end, she was choking back silent sobs. "No, I meant, let's forget it for today," Hoyu clarified. "You can just massage my shoulders and chat with me. That's enough." She stared at him blankly. "Huh? I just wanted to relax with my friend anyway. You know how hard it is for penniless single guys like us to find women who are willing to talk to us. So it's fine if we don't do anything this time. Life's hard for everyone. We're friends now, so you can just discreetly give us a discount next time, whenever it's most convenient." The rims of her eyes reddening, the woman was both moved and uneasy. "But how could I live this down? How about I use my hand?" "It's okay. Let's just chat some more," Hoyu replied. "Guh. Don't you agree?" Leaning back in the red velvet armchair, Xie Qingcheng hummed impassively in assent. "Yep, Henry, when meat bun writes dehumanization, we all feel it." Hoyu pointed at Xie Qingcheng and smiled. "See, this Daga didn't really want it to begin with. I dragged him along with me to check this place out." Xie Qingcheng didn't reply. With that, the intangible distance between them and the girls shrank a little bit. When Hoyu followed up with other questions, their answers were more detailed than before. After a few more back and forths, they had a solid understanding of the circumstances in the county, and this salon in particular. The Yi, Zhuang, and Duan family villages were the 3 largest villages under the jurisdiction of Qingli County. The villagers tended to be greedy yet indolent, and their customs were despicable, especially those of the Yi family village. The county's governance was extremely corrupt, and the village's schools and roads were still those that Lu Yuju raised funds to build back when she was the county party secretary. The men of these families would not only refuse to work, they'd often beat their wives at home, too. The women could either choose to endure it silently, risk a dangerous escape, or, like these 2 girls, sell their bodies for a bit of money to support their families. In the county seat, there were several other parlors like Awen Hair Salon, and their organizational structures were very unbalanced. For example, the owner of Awen Hair Salon was Lu Yuju's former husband, Yi Chang. When Lu Yuju was framed and sent to prison, Yi Chang found a new flame before his divorce proceedings with Lu Yuju were finalized. He even moved in with this younger lady. After Lu Yuju was released, her own daughter didn't even recognize her anymore, and that younger woman became Yi Chang's rightful wife, looking down on this convict with the lofty attitude of the lady of the house. Heartbroken, Lu Yuju left Qingli County and never returned home in all the years that followed. After a few years, Yi Chang and his new wife had a daughter together. This was Lulu. But as the saying went, a leopard couldn't change its spots. Yi Chang wasn't a diligent worker, and Lu Yuju had been the one in charge in their marriage. It was only because she was strict with him that he hadn't dared to slack off. His new wife couldn't hold a candle to Lu Yuju's strength of character. Gradually, the shortcomings that Lu Yuju had suppressed for Yi Chang stirred to life once again. He loafed around and got addicted to gambling, hitting and swearing at his wife and daughters when he lost, and spending the money on prostitutes when he won. The family's savings were rapidly depleted. His young wife was a very fragile, selfish person who couldn't handle living like this. One night, before her husband came home, she abandoned her daughter Lulu and Lu Yuju's daughter Ah-Wen to board a train to the big city. She wanted to live well, but she had no work skills, and it would be hard to fool around with guys with 2 kids in tow. She decided to make a clean break with her past and pretend to be an unmarried rural migrant worker. With her looks, she was confident that she could reel in a nice, reliable man in the city. She ran away, leaving the furious father on his own. I'm literally sitting here wondering if she's like an important character in all of this as well. Because who knows? You bring someone up, they come up like 5 volumes later. I don't know. She ran away, leaving the furious father on his own. Angry and resentful, Yi Chang drowned his sorrows in alcohol all day long and beat and cursed his daughters. The older daughter he'd had with Lu Yuju was already grown up and wanted to leave this miserable existence behind. And so, just like her stepmother, she bought a train ticket and went to the nearest city to look for a job. Perhaps it was because of her limited education. Or perhaps she wasn't accustomed to the transient lifestyle, but after a while, she came back. After her return, Ah-Wen's personality had changed drastically. She went to her father and said to him, "Do you want to make money without doing any work? I have an idea, but I need your help. If you sell the family property, we can purchase a mixed-use commercial and residential building. I already found a place. If you do as I say, the money will start rolling in." Yeah. Meat excels at Chekhov's gun. Exactly, Psykeen. Thus, Ah-Wen Hair Salon was opened. Yi Chang was the big boss and took the majority of the earnings. Ah-Wen and her sister Lulu were in charge of finding girls to work in the parlor. As his earnings multiplied, Yi Chang bought a car and the trendiest new phone. He spent this tarnished money with a clear conscience, speeding between the city and the village to patronize increasingly expensive nightclubs and extravagant underground casinos. He gradually started to treat his daughters better, too. Before, he'd always say that it was better to have sons than daughters. But now that he knew his daughters could earn money and support him too, he'd grin when they were mentioned and call them his treasures. Of course, he knew that the girls who toiled in his parlor were also the daughters and even the wives of other men. But so what? Their labor could be traded in for chips on the gambling table, or a beautiful woman in his arms. So he accepted it without question. As Yi Chong spent less time in Qingli County, he grew more distant from his old friends in the village as well. When he draped himself in name brands and put on a luxury watch, he instantly felt his social status skyrocketing. Such a tiny village couldn't contain a golden phoenix like him. He spent all his time loitering in the city, flirting with women and practically forgetting who he was. As long as his daughters remembered to send him money on time, all was well. Why do I feel like it's going to be his body that they find? Would not be undeserved. Hearing the whole story made He Yu feel sick to his stomach. Coming from an unhappy family himself, he loathed parents who treated their children like dogs. So Yi Chong usually lives outside the village these days? He asked. That's right. He hasn't been back in a long time. What about Ah Wen? Wen Jia comes around the salon every day, though she usually stops by quite late. Guga, do you want to meet her? Of course He Yu wanted to meet Yi Ah Wen. He needed to see her in person to find out if she was the mysterious woman from last night. If so, he wanted to know why she sneakily gave them those files and where she'd gotten them from. However, now he'd listened to the girl's story, he was pretty sure Yi Ah Wen wasn't the kind of person who'd give him the straightforward truth just because he asked. And there was that suspicious gap in her timeline. The first time she ran away to the city. Before then, it sounded like she was a relatively helpless girl who didn't have the nerve to stand up to her father. But after she returned, she could order Yi Chong around and even convince him to sell the family property and start this kind of business. Just what exactly had she experienced outside the village in those years? He Yu wanted to hear more about Yi Ah Wen, but unfortunately the girls didn't know anymore. He glanced at Xie Qingcheng. Although it was impossible to read his gaze through his cloudy gray contacts, He Yu knew him so well that from his smallest movements, even his posture and aura, he could tell what he was thinking. He knew him so well. Right now, he could sense that Xie Qingcheng's thoughts were the same as his own. Xie Qingcheng had mostly kept quiet and listened throughout the entire conversation. But a few minutes later, just as He Yu expected, he spoke up. I'd like to use the restroom. Where is it? Unsurprisingly, this dingy little hair salon didn't have a private bathroom in each room. One of the girls carefully relayed the directions to Xie Qingcheng, but she still felt a bit uneasy. Daga, how about I take you there? He Yu stood up and smiled. He'd probably feel a bit embarrassed. I'll go with him instead. The girl had never encountered such reserved customers before. Chuckling, she opened the door for them, pointing out the way once more before letting the men walk out. After making sure the two girls hadn't followed them, Xie Qingcheng spoke quietly to He Yu. Even if we meet Yi Ah Wen, she might not tell us the truth. So let's take the chance to see if we can find any clues in these rooms. Humanity High School's files must be very important to the person behind the scenes. If those records are real, and the mysterious woman from yesterday was really Yi Ah Wen, then she must have some connection to that person. We don't have much time, so let's split up and investigate. You take the left side, I'll take the right. He Yu looked into his hazy gray eyes. Even with those contacts in, how are you still so sharp? Xie Qingcheng touched his eyelids, frowning slightly. Am I not convincing? He Yu broke into a smile. No, you're very convincing. I just mean that your vibe hasn't changed at all. You still act like a damn cop. Xie Qingcheng didn't reply. He didn't have time to humor He Yu's nonsense. Hurry up and go, he said. Now, do we think that Xie Qingcheng secretly kind of took it as a compliment that he was compared to a cop because he always wanted to be a cop? I'm just saying. Meat bun. What is with, not just meat bun, it's just Danmei in general. gets me to love cop characters, and then I have to, like, question all my life choices for a moment. Yeah, Blue, you said there's gonna either be a body in the bathroom or one of the girls will be dead when they go back. Oh, goodness. I don't know. Xie Qingcheng didn't reply. He didn't have time to humor Hoyu's nonsense. Hurry up and go, he said. They walked off in opposite directions. Almost the entire second floor of Ah Wen Hair Salon was partitioned off into those same small rooms. Xie Qingcheng didn't find anything noteworthy as he walked through. But on reaching the end of the hallway, he discovered another narrow staircase. This building had an attic. When he climbed the stairs, he discovered a small attic room containing only a desk, a few bookshelves, and some messy piles of miscellaneous items. Xie Qingcheng felt that there was something disconcerting about this place, although at first it was hard to put his finger on why. Was there ever a video transmission of a dead person in this room? I don't... Were they ever in an attic? Like a nondescript attic? I don't remember. A putrid odor intermittently wafted through the air. Having been trained as a doctor, he immediately identified it as the smell of something rotting. As Xie Qingcheng carefully looked around the room, he realized what was odd. The rotten smell was strong, but there wasn't any food in the room. Other than paper, he only saw metal and wood. None of these objects could cause that kind of stench. So where was the smell coming from? Xie Qingcheng slowly backed up to the doorway. He looked the room over from this vantage point for a while, and eventually noticed something else bizarre about it. The walls. Although the wall furthest from the door was mostly covered by a bookshelf, upon closer examination, he could tell that it was a slightly different color than the other two walls. Pale pink paint looked fresh. Blue, maybe you're thinking of the time they were trapped in the dorms? I don't know what I'm thinking of, like, for a second I thought that, like, that Xie Qingcheng had, like, recognized the room, and I was like, when the thing was happening at the university and there were video transmissions being shown, I was like, was something being held in this room? But I don't think that's it. I think he just gets a bad feeling about it because there's a rotting smell. And it's just sketchy. Xie Qingcheng walked over to the wall and pushed the bookshelf to the side. Like a curtain slowly opening in a dark theater, the shelf's movement revealed a large, peeling wet patch on the newly painted wall, as if some strange kind of moss was growing there. After he moved the entire shelf aside and stepped back to the doorway to look at the wall again, a shock jolted through his body. That patch of dampness was shaped like a blurry human silhouette. All sorts of horrifying ideas sprang into his mind. Xie Qingcheng glanced at his wristwatch. Almost 10 minutes had passed since he left the private room, but if he didn't look for evidence now, he would almost definitely never get another chance. Thus, he quickly decided to step forward and knock on the wall near that indistinct human-shaped outline. He discovered an area toward the bottom of the silhouette that sounded hollow. Xie Qingcheng used a box cutter from the desk to scrape off the pink paint on that hollow section bit by bit, finding a layer of newly installed wooden boards underneath. Without much effort, he pried off a small section and tilted his phone flashlight upward. A particularly horrible stench assaulted his senses, and he saw a pair of tan leather men's shoes. Above the shoes was a length of ankle in a state of severe decomposition. There was a body in the wall. At that moment, a distant, chilly voice spoke from outside the door. "What are you looking at?" Oh God. Who does this distant, chilly voice belong to? We're not going to find out today, because that's the end of the chapter. He's he's blind. Don't worry about it. Right. Oh God. Well, they've blown their cover. Maybe we're lucky and that was addressed to Hoyu. I don't know. Okay. Well, when we come back, which will be on Saturday, because we're doing an extra stream to finish the book this week. We're finishing the book. We're finishing up with Case File for 4 months. And when we come back on Saturday, we will be on chapter 117, which is called Guh, You're So Good at Driving. My guess is they had to drive away real quickly. Maybe they stole a car as a getaway car or something. I don't know. Blue, are we finishing it at the same... Yeah. So we're gonna finish it... Like, if I hadn't been set back by the internet and had to cancel a couple of streams, we would have been finishing the book this week anyway. So that's why I did the Saturday stream, to get it caught up. And yeah, we're doing 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern time. So same time as we normally do. Yeah, sorry. I realized, I was like, wait, that's probably what you meant. Yep. Same time. Same hour. Oh my god. Alright, I'll see myself out. Yeah. Well. That was a series of events. A nice cliffhanger for us to end on. That makes me extra glad that we are streaming on Saturday, because I would just be spending the rest of the week until Monday like, what the heck is gonna happen? I'm so excited and scared to see what happens at the end of this book. So thank you for coming to the stream. I will see you all Saturday. Bye.